Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the CPA Lady Podcast. My name is Marjorie McPike. I am your host today. I'm your host of the podcast. I have with me today, usually I kind of go into my spiel, but we have such an exciting topic. We are going to be talking about debt. The word debt, the infamous debt that everyone just doesn't like to talk about. So I have with me today, debt-free Joel. And Joel, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to our listeners.
Sure. I appreciate you having me, Marjorie. So my name is Debt Free Joel. The whole point of or purpose of my life that's taken its own turn is to help educate minorities, specifically Black people, on how to be better with money. And the way I usually do it, either on my channels or on Instagram or whatever it is usually three ways, right? So the first way is through saving, the second is through investing, and most importantly, the third is through charity. From an academic perspective, I have a bachelor's in applied mathematics and statistics. I have a master's in finance, an MBA in finance, and I also hold the CFA designation, which is a Chartered Financial Analyst designation.
Awesome.
All that don't matter. What really matters is that I'm 100% debt free, no student loans, no car payments, no credit cards, nothing. I don't owe anybody anything. So if I can do it, anybody could do it.
That's impressive. So tell us about your debt-free journey, because you said you don't owe anybody. So it's like some people could have very little debt to begin with.
Yeah.
But what was your journey like?
Just typical. Yeah, it's basically the typical type of journey, right? You have your student loans that you've been sitting there with. You have your credit cards, and then eventually I had a car. But the way it actually all this started, I always say the same thing, is that my best friend since kindergarten had extra money at the time. They were flipping houses during that real estate boom.
Mhm.
So when he had extra money at the time, we were all going out one day, and he came picked me up from my mother's house. I hop in the front seat of his car, and usually when I link up with him, we talk about money. We talk about literally everything under the sun. So when we're talking, he's like, yeah, I just paid off my student loans, and a light bulb went in my head.
Mhm.
And I didn't say nothing for the rest of the night in terms of that. It just clicked in my head. So when I got home, it was, mind you, we're all out in the city having fun, but this nagging thought, I was like, that's such a great idea. How did he do that? So when I got home, I made the decision, don't buy the car, don't do this, don't do that, pay off your student loans.
Nice.
So I had about 30 grand in student loans, and I paid them off, after basically beating them in the face, stayed home and just beat them in the face as much as possible in terms of the student loans. After that was done, I remember seeing him about a year later, sat in the front seat of his car and said, I paid off my student loans, right? And then from there, it just took off. So then I was able to move. Then I bought a car. I financed the car. Then randomly one day, I'm like, I'm done paying the car, paying these payments every single month, paid off the car.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I had was credit cards. I think it was like 7 grand. So one day after year end, you start to get your tax return, right? Which everybody thinks is free money, but it's not. You know that more than anybody, right? So it's not free money. For everybody that's watching, a tax return is not free money. That is your money, and you basically lent it to the government with no interest.
Yes.
But I'll leave it alone.
That's it.
So
That's it.
I remember I got the tax return. I put some more money on it. And I remember sitting in my apartment, borderline in the dark, paid off that credit card. And I was like, this hurts. And then from that day, I started to realize that our emotions are built towards a way from that we think it's normal. It wasn't until like the month after I started to realize, I don't owe anybody.
Mhm.
Now, this is before creating the channel. This is before having conversations with people. This is just me living my life.
Right.
But that's basically the debt-free journey. It started off, I always give my best friend credit. He was the one that started. And, he basically said that he lit the fire, and I poured the entire gasoline bottle and just took it from there and just started running with it.
So you said this hurt. So was it the hurt because you spent all of your income tax refund, right? So you didn't have any more, or was it the hurt of, I don't know.
You're departing with money that you would normally keep.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you, for the majority of people who are watching this podcast right now, if they have credit card payments, the majority of them can pay off their credit card today if they wanted to. They choose not to because they'll beat up their savings.
Right.
So let me help everybody who's listening. You don't have a savings if you have debt as well like that.
That's a bar.
You really don't, right? Because at the end of the day, you can have 7 grand in your savings account, but if you have 5 grand on a card, you net the two. You really have 2 grand.
Right.
And a lot of people don't like going through that process of remember, you're giving money away that's not going to please you. We're by nature, by humans, we want to be, we want that acceleration of stimulus, right? We want to buy something, Amazon packages all over the place.
Right.
But when you pay off debt, you've already bought it a long time ago.
Right. Right.
So now it's like you're paying for something that you probably enjoyed that you don't even care about anymore. And a credit card is the worst because you usually don't know what's on the credit card that got you to the point in the first place.
That's
It's
true.
usually the worst types of debt, right? Like the degree right behind you, you can point to that and say, yes, I know what got me to that, right? The CPA, I know what got me that. I know what got me through school. I can see the payment. I can make the payment. The car, you can go outside and see it. The credit card, that's accumulated over the years. You have no idea what you bought.
That's true. That's true. And then not just that, but you're paying for something multiple times because of the interest rate that you're paying.
Yes.
Right? It's not just a cash purchase.
Yes. And again, to everybody in your audience, do not be fooled by these people who said they're going to give you cash back.
Right.
Right? Think about it. Yes, they do give you cash back, but you have to think about the behavior behind the money. Why would credit cards companies, whose primary purpose is to lend you money, give you money back?
Right.
They're not doing this because they're trying to help you. Statistics show that you're more likely to overspend when you use a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the statistics have been showing this for decades now. So that's why, if you notice, especially where you are, maybe in Southern Cal, have you realized that people don't even take cash anymore?
Right, they don't.
Right? Think about the last time you went out. Right? You went out with your friends, went out with anybody. Usually everybody puts a card down.
Mm-hmm.
And what statistics show that you're more likely to spend using that credit card, even if you pay off the balance every single month.
Right.
Right? They're going to make money off of somebody else who's overpaying and not being able to pay off that debt. Because all it takes is that 1 month to mess you up, right? That 1 month where you can't afford it. And then they hit you with that interest and then it starts to compound.
That's true. Very true. Okay. So your debt-free journey, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to total up all of my credit card debt and then go at it. It was more in stages.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did it before learning about the debt-free community. I did it before learning about Dave Ramsey. I did it before all of that. I didn't know what that journey was like. I knew I was going through it, but I didn't know if there were specific steps and debt avalanche and, the debt snowball. I just knew get it out the way, right? Get it out the way, pay it off as much as you can, sacrifice whatever you can to get it out the way. And plus I'm a math guy, right? So because I have a background in math, I know when I'm being charged interest.
Right.
You should have saw my face when I paid off my credit card and they still sent me a bill the month later, because your interest is charged from the prior pay period, not the current month. So for everybody watching, when you pay off your credit card this month, you still owe interest from the month before. So they'll still come and get the money one way or another.
Right.
I think it took 2 cycles to pay off your credit card fully because they're still charging you interest on the prior period.
That's a good point. So if someone is trying to pay off their debt, they should include like an extra month's payment when they make that final payment, just to kind of take care of that.
Because you have to pay the interest, right? So for example, if we're in June right now, when they send you your bill, I think they're saying the interest for like April. And then next month when it's paid off, you pay off for May, and then whatever's left over is for June or something like that. I had to call American Express.
Wow.
I called them right on the phone, and I remember talking to the lady, and she was really polite about it. She broke it all down. She was like, yeah, technically speaking, you're paying interest from the prior period. So I think that's what a lot of people tend to forget. And what happens is it compounds over time, 20-something% interest. It compounds over time, compounds daily. And then you just get into the habit of making the same minimum payments. Maybe you put a little bit extra, you feel good about yourself, but it really doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. So yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't just a full-blown journey, like, how people put everything down. I just knew I hated debt. I hated owing people. And then I just went from there.
So how many years has it been that you've been debt-free?
I think at this point, what year are we in? 2021. I paid off my car, I would say 2017-ish. Yeah.
That's awesome. So 4 years being debt-free. Right.
Yeah, I would say about 3. Yeah, actually, I'd probably say 3. About 3. Yeah.
So what do you find yourself doing with the money that you are paying for your debt? So what's been your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, so for me personally, after the debt's been done, um, you remember you have extra cash, you can do what you want now, right? So my savings is already, built up from a 6 months perspective. Anything over 6 months goes to my regular investment account. So I've been investing long before the ramp up that you've been seeing over the last 2 years. I've been investing for roughly 10 years now, 10 to 12 years. So I take that extra money and I put it into like a mutual fund ETF and let that compounds over time. But most importantly, and this kind of goes to a shock with people, I donate like hell,
Mm.
right? And when you donate money, you don't have to necessarily donate it to a church. Like I'm Catholic, for example, so I do donate to the church. But where you can donate is not only just for the church, but you can donate to your family.
Right.
Right. So one of the cool things I tell people, or family and friends, so one of the things I tell people is imagine if you're debt free and you have extra money on hand. How many family members or friends can you help?
Yeah, it's true.
Right. Quietly. Nobody needs to know. Right. PayPal and all this kind of, you can do all that quietly and no one would ever know that you're helping people. And then you can help them get out of debt.
Right. Right. So,
right. So
you're building generational wealth that way by helping your family.
Right. Family, friends.
Help themselves. Right.
Exactly. And then when they get to that point, you tell them, look, go do the same thing for somebody else now.
I like that because a lot of times people, generational wealth, we always talk about it and we think about it being just the lump sum of money that you can leave to your beneficiaries, the people that are going to inherit it, but it's not always like that. So that's a very good way to do it. You're helping the generations that are coming behind you by just helping them to be financially secure.
I'll take it a step further. Your generational wealth starts with your education.
Okay.
It doesn't start with your money.
Okay, so touch on that one.
Right? Your educational, your financial wealth, your generational wealth starts with education, right? You have to learn about money. You have to learn about your behavior. You have to learn about what it makes to invest. You have to learn about certain things. Don't just depend on people all day long. And I think from an educational perspective, you have to learn about yourself. So I read a ton of books. So everything I told you guys, MBA, all this kind of stuff, most of the stuff I learned in personal finance was outside of school. Right. What's the thing that they always tell you? I wish I knew this in high school. Right. Well, the books have been there. We just never read them. We just never read them. The books have always been there. People for hundreds of years now have been putting on paper how they got rich, how they got wealthy, how they managed their money, and nobody read them. So back in 2017, I can almost remember the date. It was June 30th, 2017. I started reading. I started getting into reading and listening to certain types of motivational speaking and how to educate your mind. But your finances start with your education, and it also starts with your behavior towards money. A lot of people are scared about money. That's why people tell you don't talk about the 3 major things, right? Don't talk about religion, politics, and money. Right? It's the reason why is because it causes conflict. There's a reason why when I forgot the name of the institute, but when they talk about stress, right, and they start to rank stress every year, money is top 1 or top 2 every single year.
Wow.
So you have to educate yourself on money. So, I told my brother this one time. I said, there's one thing to pass around generational wealth to your kids, but not to be facetious. But what about if your kid is, is an idiot? Like, what about if your kid doesn't want to learn about money?
Right.
You just gave a kid who you know better than anybody all this money, they're going to blow it. You have to teach them educationally over time how to manage the money.
I like that. And then you're teaching them your thought process as well. I actually had someone else on the podcast and she mentioned that about the intangible part of generational wealth, which is like the education. You're teaching them your beliefs, your why you did certain things. So
there's a discipline.
Right.
There is a rhythm to this. There is a severe discipline to getting out of debt, to getting your financial life in order. Have you noticed that, like, you can take all the money I've accumulated up to this time and I'll still be the same person because this has changed. Right? This you can never take away.
Right. Right.
Everything that I've learned like you could take someone who's a billionaire right now that took the time to earn their money. You take away their money, they're going to get their money back.
Right.
Because they have the intangible education. If you teach your kids at a young age the power of a dollar, and you teach them about what really debt is, what is it to borrow money, what is it to spend your money, what is it to invest your money, you teach them young enough, they're going to carry those principles for the rest of their life. So even if they make bad financial decisions, they're able to maneuver out.
That's true.
And they learn from example.
That's very true. Very true. So do you do this just as a volunteer, or do you actually provide services? Do you have like a side business where you're doing help people with debt?
So the interesting part about all of this, right, is that this is not my profession per se, right? Because I work with investment advisors because of the CFA designation. But the way this all started was last year during the social unrest. Remember when everybody was like freaking out because of the George Floyd thing? There was a ton of protests all over the place. And I caught a lot of heat, but I just could not understand getting out in public during a pandemic, taking my mask on and screaming in people's faces. I couldn't do it. I'm not knocking people who did. I just didn't see the logic, especially when the pandemic was hitting Black people the most.
Right, right.
But I figured you can't just complain about it. You got to do something differently. So what I did was I created, first on my private page for Instagram, just started giving away information about money. Because for me, it was like whoever controls the money controls the rules.
Right.
And then I created the separate page and it kind of blew up from there. So everything that I've been doing in terms of helping people on the side, providing videos, I've been doing it for free.
Just for free.
Yeah, this hasn't been because of a business. This hasn't been for any, and that's why the funny thing about when I talk to my friends about this is like, so, when you're going to open the full business, this was never the intention. The intention, if I ever get to that point, that's one thing, but the intention has always been to get as much information out there to Black people on how to be better with money so that you can dictate the rules. You can dictate the rules of engagement from a minority's perspective. So yeah, I do help people on the side. I've helped people for years. This is the funny thing is I've been doing this for years. Even before I was debt free, I was helping people with their budgets and all that. But even now, because of everything over the last, basically 12 months, I've just been giving the information away for free.
That's cool. I noticed in one of your YouTube videos, you said that you like making budgets.
Yeah, I like to see the numbers add up because again, I'm more of a very specific. Everybody has a type A, type B personality, but making a budget. A lot of people think a budget is restrictive, right? Oh, I don't want to do a budget. It's gonna, I can't spend my money. No, me personally, I think a budget is the financial mirror that I hold to your face. It tells you the truth, right? That's what a budget does. It just tells you the truth. And that's a very scary moment.
And the same thing with the business, it's like, it tells you exactly where your money's going, if you're making money, if you're not making money.
Exactly. And I think that's why I like holding even myself to a budget, because there's times even when you're debt free, like, yeah, I completely overspent that one. That was a bit much. I'm not carrying debt, but yeah, I overspent. But it holds you accountable. It holds you accountable to what you're supposed to be doing. So for me personally, the reason why I like to budget is because the expression you see on people's faces when you help them budget. See, when you help people budget, they come with the high numbers, right? I guarantee you, the people in your audience, when they do budgets, they have all the major items.
Right.
They have the rent, they have the mortgage, they have the car payment, they have the student loan, they have the cable bill, they have their phone bill, and it just after that is done. So when they do that budget, like, you have $3,000 left over every month. How's this happening?
Right.
What you realize is the small things.
The small things that add up.
And they add up. They have 2 Netflixes, they have 3 gym memberships, they have this, they have that. And doing a budget tells you the truth, and it tells your money where to go before your money tells you where to stay. You see what I'm saying? That's why I like a budget. Like, you tell your money where to go. You're in charge of your money. Your money is going to tell you exactly where you're going to go, or it's going to tell you where you're going to stay.
So when you start working with someone with their budget, I know it's kind of like review your past bank statements and things like that, but do you just do like an Excel spreadsheet? Do you tell them to just kind of write it down?
Well, I usually have like a template that I created myself that I've always used for myself. So I kind of just like apply it to other people. But one of the first things I do is I try to find out what is this about?
Right.
Like, why are you here?
It always goes back to the why. It's
Why?
the why.
Yeah, because something triggered you. Why are you here? It's because of a wedding. It's because of a car. I just don't like how I feel. Something's not right. I feel like I will never have money. One night I'm sitting there crying in the middle of the dark by myself because I don't know how I'm gonna pay for everything. These are all things that I've heard over the years.
Right.
And usually the why is what you're looking for, because the thing about budgeting, the thing about personal finances, the numbers, it's pretty easy, right? It's just subtraction, adding, maybe you have to multiply once or twice, but it's pretty, it just put all your income at the top, all the things that take your money away at the bottom, you come up with a number. And then from there you can figure out a strategy. But the problem is that you start to look at people's why, because the why is what keeps them going, right? When you tell someone who has 50, 60, $100,000 in debt of student loans, for example, and you say, look, man, this is going to take 10 years roughly to pay off at this pace. They can do it for a couple months, but then you start to lose the reason, you start to lose the why. And I think everybody should have that purpose of trying to do it. I'm extremely sympathetic to those type of things, because imagine you're sitting there, you're budgeting, you're working hard, you've restricted some of your purchasing power, and you got to do this for 10 years. You're going to be miserable.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So you try to make a little bit of breathing room in people's budgets so they can try to enjoy life. But that's why I start first. Even before the finances, I want to know the why.
The why.
Yeah.
Everything starts with the why.
Yeah.
Everything starts with the why.
Because then you can remind them that later on.
I know. It's that word. And I probably shouldn't put this on camera, but it's like, I just don't like the details for me.
Yeah.
It's like, because I know it's there, the bills are paid. It's like, I just don't like to sit there and do it.
And you know what it does? Because the details show you who you are. It's the details, right? From an aggregate perspective, you can say income minus expenses, I'm done. Especially from an accountant's, forget about it, right? You can see it, income statement, done, over. But when you get into the details is when you start to see, what are you exactly spending money on?
Right.
And then you have to go into the bank statement now. So I had one time I was having a conversation with somebody, a good friend of mine, helping them with their budget. And she saves, she was saving money. She had her budget on Excel. It was nice, color coded, formulas all over the place. And she still wasn't saving money somehow. She had a line item that says she was saving a good amount of money, but her bank balance did not match.
Right.
Well, after conversing with her and asking questions, what you realize is every 2 days there was an Amazon package coming through the door that she bought. Right. So what happened was, you're saving the money and then you're going into your savings and buy something. So you feel good for 2 seconds and then you take the behavior and go buy something. Right. So that's why I think the details has to be there, because, or at least a target, right? So let's say you make $4,000 a month. If you say you want to save 10% of that every month, I should see your income balance, your balance on your statement increase by $400 every month.
And do you actually work hands on with people like that?
Yeah.
And tell them? Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, as much as they want me to. Remember, I tell people all the time, I argue more with people about the behavior than I do the mathematics. Money's more about behavior than it is about mathematics.
It is.
So I'm not a magic worker, right? I can't sit there and find you new money, right? You make $100,000 a year. After taxes, you make $60,000. That $60,000 is $60,000, unless you get a raise, a bonus, something.
Right.
I can't find you new money. What I can do is tell you where that money is going based on your behavior. And a lot of times what you see is people are usually trying to fix something after the fact. Like, for me to mess up Marjorie's life right now, all you need to do is go outside and buy a car that you don't want. They'll give you the car for free. They'll let you walk off the lot with it. You just got to stay there all day, right? You stay there all day, you're miserable. You got to call the bank. Maybe they tell you pay tax and title, and you walk out. And that car will set you back 7 years.
This is true.
7 years.
7 years.
And then when they come to me, now take into account what I just mentioned, right? It took you 24 hours to put yourself into probably $30,000 of debt. Given that math, you think it'll take you 24 hours to do the same. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little bit, it's weird how that works. People think that we can have the escape from debt as quick as we can get back into it.
Right.
Like it's not that society makes it very easy to get into debt.
They do. They do. They do. They do. I know, but then the car thing, very easy to go and get a car. Very easy.
Today, right now, you can go, like in New York right now, it's 6:30. If I want to go buy a car right now, they'll stay with me until 8, 9 o'clock to get that car done.
Mhm. They will.
Right? They'll give you the car for free at this point, in terms of no down payment. They just want you to have that debt.
Right.
And then when you do, they got you for the next 7 years or 5 or whatever it is.
That's true. That's true. So do you work with any particular software, or do you recommend for people that you work with to use a software?
It depends. I mean, I don't work with the software personally because I know Excel pretty well. So, and I keep everything pretty minimal,
Mhm.
right? So I only have one credit card that I use,
Mhm.
right? That is basically paid off. All I have is the regular expenses that run through it every month, right? So you're able to maintain credit usage, but you're not gonna, do whatever you need to do.
Okay.
But besides that, I mean, there's a ton of programs. Acorn has a lot of programs that help you from a budgeting aspect. They have the screen that tells you, breaks down your net worth and all that. I do all of it by hand,
Mhm.
me personally. So every month, at the end of the month, I take all my balances, I add them up, and boom, there goes my net worth, right? My liquid net worth, at least. And I keep track of that over time. I recommend everybody to do that. Keep track of your net worth after time, because like you mentioned before, people don't like the detail.
Right.
So the bills are paid. All right, I saved some money. Cool. But did you grow?
But did you grow?
Right? You're the one
it.
right? You're the one that went to work that day. You're the one that was away from the husband, the one that was away from the wife, the one that was away from the kid, the one that was away from your friends, the one that was away from your family. And you're not growing your money over it. So what do you like? Why are we all going to work then?
That's true.
Yeah, but there are there's a lot of software and programs that people can use. Me personally, I don't use them. I kind of do it from scratch
Mhm.
because the programs, they feel good, but they don't change the behavior.
The behavior.
The behavior is where you find the change. Me personally.
Keep going back to this behavior.
Yeah, I mean,
Behavior mindset. And that translates to anything, whether
literally.
it's personal finance, whether it's business, whether it's taxes and accounting. And I should probably kind of ask that question too, is like, do you find people that you come in contact with, are they up to date with their taxes, or is that like another area that they fear?
Yeah, they fear the taxes. So like I mentioned before in the beginning, right? People think the tax refund is is like extra money. It's not your money. It's not extra money. It's been your money, right?
Sometimes, right?
They
Both
fear
times.
they fear taxes. They fear bill collectors. They fear debt. They fear everything about money. You know
Mhm.
what? Money is one of those things where it hits you twice, right? So for people like me and you who are in the accounting finance field, we're surrounded by money all day long. We kind of become numb to it.
Mhm.
But the number one subject in the world that's hated the most is math.
It's math, yes.
And people equate money with math.
Yeah,
This
right.
is why the majority of people do budgets in their head,
Mhm.
because they don't want to put it on paper.
Right.
Right? Number one, you're emotional towards money. Number two, you hate math. So you really don't want to deal with it. Right? But that's the problem with money. Is that it can hit you twice from an emotional aspect that you just, I don't want to deal with it anymore. And it I've seen people literally almost physically become sick looking at their finances. So that's why I said it's more behavior, because it takes the progress, it takes the time to really churn out. But what you're doing is you're becoming a different person, right? As you start to get your finances in order.
Mhm.
The things that appealed to you before, you don't really care about anymore,
Mhm.
right? Especially for me, growing up in Queens, New York, buy the chain, buy the watch, buy this, buy the big, all that stuff. It doesn't make a difference to you no more, because as you start to get out of debt, as you start to get your finances in order, you have different priorities now.
Right. Right.
So it's the change. That's why I tell people all the time, become debt free, not for the monetary aspect, but
Mhm.
for what it makes of you to achieve it.
Mm.
You
That's
got
a
to be,
part right there.
yeah, you got to be something different to get that.
to get that, the discipline.
So you got to change.
You do have to change, right? You
Exactly.
do. You do. I like what you said about the growth too, because you can be going through and yeah, all your bills are paid and yeah, everything is okay and you can shop and you can do whatever it is that you want to do. But are things growing? Is your bank account growing? Are your investments increasing? You know, what is the growth that's happened? I always said, when you stop growing, you die, you know, or lack
Yeah.
of growth is death, you know. So it's like if you're in a situation where there's no growth, it's like, what are you doing? You're just existing, right?
Yeah, you don't stay in the middle, right? There's no such thing as really stagnant. Either you're growing or you're going
Or
backwards,
you're going backwards,
right?
right?
And that's just with anything in life. You always want to keep you want to enjoy life, but you also want to keep your mind sharp. You want to keep,
Right.
reading. You want to keep educating yourself. You want to keep moving with that, especially with your finances, right? There's a lot of people, they make good. So when we were younger, what they tell us, stay in school so you can make good money, right?
Mhm.
That wasn't necessarily the right thing to say. It wasn't necessarily wrong. They had the best intentions, but that's not exactly what we should have really learned.
Mhm.
What they should have told us was stay in school so you can make good money so you can keep it,
Keep it, right, right.
right?
Mhm.
Like there's a difference between saying I make $100,000 a year versus I have saved up $100,000. That's a whole, right? They don't teach net worth to people.
That's true. Very true.
Right? They don't teach net worth because I told somebody the other day, if somebody walked around and you had to put your net worth on your forehead all day long, conversations would be different.
It would be different.
Right? You got a big Benz outside, everybody's driving, having a good time, and your net worth says negative 250K.
Right.
But you got a big ass Benz outside.
Right.
Some ain't adding up, homie. So
Like
that's why I said you have to track it over time. And what you see a lot on Instagram, especially in that debt-free community type stuff, you see people, they track it, and it's a major thing when they turn it negative to positive. That means you're worth
more.
something alive.
Right.
And a lot of people, they don't really track that. They just accumulate debt, they just spend, and because society allows it to happen so easily. Right? You can have a negative net worth, whatever you want, and you can still go into Raymore Flanagan and get a couch. Yeah, I'll give it to you on credit, no problem. Right? They don't care. But that's what it has to be. You change to become a different person.
And that change is what's going to pass on to the next generation too. So
yes, because people talk about generational wealth. Very few people do anything about it.
That part.
Right? It's when you really break it down and you have the conversation with them and say, so what are you doing about generational wealth? I'm investing. It's not it. It's not the only thing, because you're investing your savings. That's crazy. You can't, right? Your savings is what's to preserve your money. That's not what your savings is, not to make you money. Your investing is to make you money.
Make you money. Right.
Right. And I think fundamentally, I think that eventually this is all going to turn negative really bad, really quickly. Because what I think is happening is a lot of people started to invest. They started taking money out their savings and putting it into the market. And everything started going up. And it was like, oh my God, this is genius. Right. But what they don't realize is they're betting their emergency fund. And they don't realize that the market can also go
that way.
Right. So if you're not saving money properly and then the market downturns on you, you get hit twice.
Wow.
So generational wealth is not just investing. Generational wealth is preserving what you already have and then growing on top of it.
On top of that.
Right. That's the generational wealth. It's the building. You have to build a base before you build the house. The base is right. The base is the savings.
Okay.
Right. So if something goes wrong, you can take care of it.
You can take care of the foundation, right?
Exactly.
You're always going to be okay, but then on the extra, that's what you're going to be using to invest.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So if I have 6 months of savings up, right, then I can allocate what I would have saved every month directly to an investment account. Mind you, that's also including me tapping out the 401k. So that's another thing that debt-free allows me to do. I get to max out my 401k.
That's your 401k, yeah.
Right, and that's an even harder one to do because you're not seeing it right now. So it's just a number on a screen, right, in terms of your net worth. but nobody's thinking about being 65, 66 at that. They don't want to think about that. But we all have to think about it. We all getting older. We all have an older generation above us that we're looking at like, all right, how can we do it a little bit differently to support them? Exactly. So that's what debt-free allows you to do certain things. You can max out your 401k. You can have an own private investment account. You can save. You can be charitable. You can start to breathe differently. When the market had a downturn last year in March, and everybody's freaking out, people are losing their jobs. My job was cutting pay left and right. I was able to withstand it almost without a blip on the screen because my 6 months was already there.
It was already there. Yeah.
Right. And that's before touching my investment account. So that's what I mean. It's that real wealth is built on that foundation. It's the expression is called Murphy's Law, right? Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Right.
Right. You ever notice that the minute you start trying to get out of debt, the minute you start trying to be nice with your money, that's when everything goes to hell.
It's true.
That's when your kid goes and breaks something in the house, right? That's when the roof leaks.
Right.
That's when the car needs an extra fix. Right. It's always like that. The minute you start to try to save money, they start throwing things at you like, there's sales now, right? You can go to Macy's and Target and this, that, and the third. It happens all the time.
To see how serious you are. Right.
Yeah. I'll tell you a joke. I remember one time I was with my mother. We got to a point where we can help, pay off her house and finally be done with it.
Awesome.
I'm sitting there with her in Bank of America. And this is not a knock to them, but this is the mentality they have. We're sitting in Bank of America, and I tapped my mother on the shoulder, and I said, "Watch this." So she signs the check. We pay everything off, and they said, "Yeah. So do you want a HELOC now? A home equity loan? Do you want to take an equity loan to start, doing things on your house?" Because remember, the minute she just signed the check, she's no longer a paying customer.
Right.
Right? They're no longer a paying customer at that point. It's the same thing as for a lot of people who lease cars, for example. The dirty secret about leasing cars is that they know you're paying, a little bit less than a regular car note, but you're still paying a good amount. They are banking on you not saving money. So once you start to lease a car, you almost can never go back to buying a regular car because you never got nothing saved. So you just keep re-upping on new cars every 3-4 years. You're spending, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a car you don't own.
It's giving away money. Never owning it. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the sad truth. I was watching one of your one of the issues that you had, or not issues, but one of the videos that you had, you were talking with somebody specifically about behavior and how the purchasing pay, like they were talking about Starbucks, how they have like the circle tables, for example, and they spend thousands of dollars studying whether you're going to be comfortable on a circular table versus a rectangular table. Right. The colors that they use. So for everybody watching, for example, if you guys want to do, I study a lot of behavior on my personal time, for sure. Watch TV, turn on CNN. Every time you turn on CNN, there's breaking news. How's that possible?
Right.
Look at the colors that every one of the news channels use. It's always red. Right? What does red invoke? Passion. Anger. Tells you to stop. So breaking news in red and white, you're automatically glued to watch the TV.
Wow.
The sounds that you hear, right, trigger things in your brain. These people spend thousands and millions of dollars trying to study your behavior. So what do you think they do with your money? It's the same thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. What's it going to take to get you to spend your money here? So
exactly.
But we have to change that. So, the goal is to be debt free, to be financially independent, to save for generational wealth. And I like what you said about it not just being the money. It's not the money, it's the education too. So how are we educating people? So
correct. We have to change it somehow. And I think it's going to be easier to change from person to person than it is from like a top-down approach.
Right.
The reason why I say that is because for me personally, for my friends of mine, for family of mine, they know me already. They've been known me. I'm the same person, right? Nothing's changed about me. But when you sit there and have a conversation with somebody and say, "Nah, you can be debt free if you do this, this, and this," is coming from someone that's relatable.
That's relatable. Right.
Not just someone who's randomly on TV, talking all day long. And so I think that's how it changes, is when you take the practical sense and apply it in somebody's life. But even then, you also have to understand, even then, you can have your closest friends, closest family, they still not gonna believe you.
Right.
Right? Because or they believe you, they still want to go through the pain.
The pain, the process, right?
They don't want to rip that Band-Aid. They
Mhm.
don't want that. They don't want to rip that Band-Aid. They don't want to go through the process. They'll say, yeah, I'll finance the car. I can pay it off. Don't worry about it. And you go, all right.
Mhm. So how do we get past that barrier?
It has to be a personal decision, unfortunately.
Mm.
Has to. You can educate people.
Mhm.
So my thing is, you got to give people the information, but then it's your job to walk. Can't drag them.
You can't drag them, right?
Can't drag them. And that's the sad part. You can't drag them. Everybody learns at a certain age. And I have to be humble about that on my own. Because remember, I had student loans, I had a car payment, I had credit cards too. You couldn't, and mind you, I was good with money, supposedly. Right? Like I was good with money. People were coming to me asking me about how to manage your money. And it took me a while to flip that switch. So it's going to take people a while, and they may never flip that switch. But if they can improve their finances like 70% compared to where they are now, then you can still hand off certain things. So that to me is the most important thing. It's not just I've tried. It doesn't work. You can't change people's mind. That's the one thing I learned about this whole Instagram thing and like doing things on YouTube. I can sit here and blow a bunch of hot air, and whether they listen to me or not, I have no idea.
Right.
Right. Versus trying to tell someone and force someone, it just doesn't work. So you can just give the information away, but it has to be a certain level of personal conviction to want to change it. But you can give the information away, though.
You can give the information away.
Yeah. So what people say all the time is, I wish I knew this in high school.
Right.
Well, what's stopping you now?
What's stopping you now? Very good. So mindset, you have to have a why. You have to set a budget.
Correct.
Look in the mirror at the details. Your why, we said the why, and just plan for growth. It's a process. I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's a process. It's not instant gratification. You're not going to see instant results.
Correct.
Right? So it's going to be over time. But have you found like one system that works better for getting the momentum? I know they talk about like the debt snowball and the debt avalanche, but anything else that you can say, that would help people to get the momentum?
I think either one of those approaches are fine. I think they're excellent approaches. So the debt snowball is basically lining up your debt from smallest to largest. And then, taking the debt from one and using that payment on the other, and then kind of the snowball effect as every one of them gets paid off. And then the avalanche is basically lining them up from lowest interest rate to highest interest rate. Is the highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. The reason why is because you pay lower interest over time compared to the debt snowball. The reason why the debt snowball method works well is because it triggers your behavior again, right? Here comes the word behavior. Because you see action quickly. Right? So if I have like a $50 debt, I can just pay that off and I can feel the progress. If I pay a low interest rate, that's my car, which is like, let's say 3%, but I have 30 grand on that car. It's going to take me forever to pay it off.
Right.
So I think either way is important. To me, what I tell people is just pick one and go.
Just pick one and go.
Don't just pick what works for you. A lot of people, for example, like in that Dave Ramsey crowd, they use the debt snowball method for two reasons. One, they don't know about the debt avalanche, but number two, he's very smart enough to know that he's appealing to behavior first and people's emotion, right? Because when people see the progress, they feel as if they're accomplishing something.
Right.
If I have 7 bills or debt that I have, and I start off with the one that's 1,000, and I can get that one away in like 2-3 months, and I feel good about myself, that's different than the other one that's 50K that I got to start off with first. But attack it with diligence. Like really go in and dedicate your time, but still enjoy life. That's leave part of your budget to try to enjoy life, because you don't want to be miserable. A lot of people stop with the budgeting and paying off debt because they get miserable. It gets too much.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another thing for people that a lot of folks don't really take into account. When it comes to money, and particularly in relationships, your debt is her debt. Her debt is your debt. So if you start a debt-free journey,
Right.
that means you and your husband
Right.
are now on this journey, right?
Right.
Because you only are as strong as your weakest link.
Right. That's
So
true.
too often I see couples trying to do things in their own way. And that's the one. Money is a very big contentious topic in a marriage, in a relationship. Trust me, I know this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I know it firsthand. Trying to have these conversations of debt, they could drive people through the wall. And not
Right.
everybody can receive the message the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're restricting me with money. You're trying to control my money. No, I'm trying to help you.
Right.
But if you are in a relationship and you're trying to get your finances in order, ensure that your partner is doing it with you. So you guys have skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Too often, it's like the guy doesn't want to do it, but the woman does.
Mm-hmm.
It happens so often. The
Happens
guy's
a
like,
lot,
I don't want to deal with this. You
Right.
read in books and all this kind of stuff. Men are wired differently to just go and get money
Mm-hmm.
and flip money. Women know how to preserve. They're naturally, and they on average, right? Just as an average, they know how to preserve
Right.
and they know how to think ahead
Mm-hmm.
as it pertains to finances. Men, on the other hand, they want to flip that money today. So you have to make sure both are on the same page.
So what's a tip that you can recommend if you're not?
So the first thing I think you need to do is you have to open up the level, the area of communication. You have to open that up.
Mm-hmm.
So a few things I recommend to people. Like, so for example, if let's say you're a woman and you're trying to talk to your husband or you're talking to your man, you're talking to somebody you want to spend the rest of your life with, don't talk to him about money right after he comes back from work. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk to him over liquor with it. Don't talk to him while he's trying to watch football, basketball, whatever the case is. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Take him outside of the environment and casually talk to him about what his financial goals are. What do you want? Right? Remember, it's the why.
Mm-hmm. The why.
What do you want? What are you looking for? Yeah, I want to leave my kids this, that, and the third, and then work backwards. Because what happens is if you can slowly and calmly, and it's not going to happen on one conversation, by the way,
Right.
just caveat. But if you can work slowly backwards and show them, hey, look, if you want this, well, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and we got to start here.
Right.
Then it starts to kick in. Right? It starts to kick in. And then you lead by example, right?
Mm-hmm.
They see you reading the books, you talk to them about the books. You see them watching the videos, you talk to them about the videos. You try to make it inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Do not, under any circumstances, try to force the issue, though. You can't remember, a lot of people, think about it, these people are married, they're having sex, they're doing all these types of things. But when it comes to money, that's yours, this is mine, I don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this constant push between people to say, this is my money, that's your money, leave me alone. To bring two people together to say, this is our money now. It's different. These are our kids. This is our house. This is this and the third. But for some reason, when it comes to the money, it's always separated. So you have to try to bridge that gap as much as you can. And I think you do that slowly. You have to do it. If you try rushing it overnight, it's not going to work.
That's very good information, because a lot of times I know, like you said, it's husband and wife, different communication styles, different money styles. So being able to bring that together and to know how to do that, because it's challenging to go forward when you're not both on the same page.
Correct.
Right? And you can grow when one's not growing with you.
Correct. And you can try to find a mediator, someone who doesn't take any sides. Mm-hmm. To help. Like I've done that with people where you don't take any sides and you just try to call a spade a spade. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it helps the guy kind of see it. Men in general, right? And I said in general, I don't like using overgeneralizations, but in general, we don't like asking for help. One guy doesn't go to another guy asking how you get the money. Right. We want to be the one. We want to be the plug, right? Right. Like we want to be the ones to get the money. We want to be the ones. We have pride, this and the third. And even in women sometimes too, you don't want to ask people for help and this, that, and a third. So you got to figure out what your partner's, sometimes they call it love language, but you also got to, talk about your partner's money language,
Money language. Yeah.
right?
That's a good
How do
one.
they speak about money?
Mhm.
And a lot of time people speak about money in fear, right? Sometimes the aggressiveness behind your money language is probably fear. And
Wow.
remember, a lot of these people did not grow up with any money.
Trying to Instagram it.
No worries.
See if it comes out. Okay, very cool. So anything that you want to leave? We've talked about a lot, personal finance, budgeting, investing. Just so what are your goals for the future?
I mean, for me personally, again, is to keep educating people as much as I can. I think Robert Kiyosaki, the guy that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Mhm.
I remember in his book, he mentioned, I read it recently. I think he said, most people have a profession and everybody should have like a business. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different,
Different,
right?
right,
A profession is what pays you money. Your business is what's going to make your money make more money, right?
right.
To me, I would add the third. Everybody should have a purpose because your purpose is what's going to drive you
Mhm.
after everything. So for me, my purpose is always to educate, Black people specifically, minorities in particular, but just Black people on money. But for me, my goal is the next stop is hopefully to buy a house. So I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in an apartment now,
Mhm.
but hopefully it's to buy a house. But again, because you read the paper, you read everything. I read the Wall Street Journal. Hell no, I'm not buying a house now. No way. Right? The price is 20%. I don't care about the interest rate. Y'all keep the interest rate. I don't care. It could be 7% by the time I get a house. I'm okay. I'm out in 7 years.
Right.
As far as
You're
I'm
out in
concerned.
7 years.
That's how I see it. Yeah. So for me personally, this is again, I'm hoping this happens.
Mhm.
But the way that I want to buy a house is that I put enough money down
Mhm.
so that I can get a 15-year mortgage
Mhm.
so that whatever I'm paying now in rent, right? Let's say I'm paying 1,800 here in rent. I don't pay more than that in mortgage, taxes, and insurance.
Right.
So my lifestyle doesn't change,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
It has to be a 15-year mortgage. I'm not doing 30.
Mhm.
And I have to have a plan to get out of this mortgage in 7 years.
7 years. Okay.
Gone. And I'm out the game. So, I mean, but if I was going to leave with something for everybody, I would leave this. Make sure that, and this is not a quote from me, it's actually a quote from the richest man in Babylon. A part of all that you earn is yours to keep. If everybody who's watching this understands that one concept,
Mhm.
you can change your financial life around.
So make sure you're saving something out of everything that you make.
You're the one that worked. You're the
Mhm.
one that went to school. You're the one that did everything. You sacrificed all this time to be at a job that you probably don't like.
Mhm.
Make sure a part of all that you earn is yours to keep.
It's yours to keep. Okay. And then I have a question regarding that. I know that's supposed to be the last one, but do you recommend any particular savings plans or investment plans that are good for people that have limited amounts or lower amounts of money to invest or save? So
The
kind of
first
like
thing
an automatic savings plan.
Yeah, I think automatic savings plans. So like, this is where you know yourself from a budgeting standpoint. Maybe you're not the type of person who likes to move money every month into your savings. I do. I like to see it move.
Mhm.
Maybe, but if you can have an automatic savings, that's great
Mhm.
because it does the job for you. The only way you can know how much you can save, though, is you need to do a budget first. Right? Like that's the only way. The only way you know how much you can save is to do the budget first because the budget's going to show you what you can afford.
You can afford.
Right? So you can be like, all right, I can do 200. Okay, fine, but maybe you can do more. Maybe you can't do 200 when you put everything on paper.
Well, I always try to tell people, I don't care if you save $25 out of a paycheck, save something, and you can go and you can set up like, was it a Capital One 360? I think it is. You can set up that account. You get paid on the 3rd. You have your $25 come out on the 4th.
Correct.
Right? And even if you're not budgeting, you're still saving something. You're not spending everything because you'll figure out a way in order to get that $25 back.
Correct.
And then over time, it'll kind of build up some momentum. And then you can, even if they're not budgeting, it's still something. Right?
Yeah, I mean, you could do something, right? Something is better than nothing.
Right.
The one thing I will tell people though, right, is that $25, right? Because we're math people.
Mm-hmm.
You start to work out the number now. and you say, all right, you're saving this percentage of your money. When they
Right.
see it's less than 1%,
Mm,
that's when it starts to get shaky,
wow, that's a good point.
right? Because think about it, right? Let's say you make $4,000 a month
Mhm.
and you saved $50.
$50, right?
You make
Yeah.
$4,000 and you saved $50. How? Right now, you could have 3 kids, you could be a single mom, single dad. It could happen. No questions asked. Save whatever you can.
Mhm.
But if you did it just to build the momentum, after a while, you want to start upgrading yourself
Upgrading
because you're
yourself.
realizing this is not going to be. You're not going to remember your financial goals. This ain't going to be able to buy your house.
Right.
Not
Right.
at this pace.
Mhm.
It's not going to be able to buy that car that you want. It's not going to be able to give the kids the college tuition that they want.
Mhm.
It's time for you to elevate. But if you want to start with something, start with something. Get into the habit of seeing part of your money being deferred later on.
Later on, yeah. But I like the percentage thing too, you know?
Yeah. So I always use 10%. 10% is the number. I mean, you can look at it biblically, right? 10% was always the number for charity. It's 10% is an easy number.
Mhm.
Like I don't know how much time we have, but the 70-30 rule was a rule by Jim Rome that was a motivational speaker back in the 80s.
Mhm.
And what he said was that you live on 70% of what you make, the other 30% you allocate evenly to savings, investing, and charity.
Mhm.
Right. So maybe you can't do that. Maybe you can do 97, 1, 1, and 1,
Mhm.
but you
Right.
build the habit first
Right. Right.
because it's the habit that's going to sustain over time. It's going to level out and start changing percentages
Right.
and all that.
And then you have that goal.
Exactly.
Yeah, something to work towards. Awesome. 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 Well, thank you very much, Joel. You guys can find Joel on Instagram at debtfreejoel and also on YouTube. Your YouTube channel is the same name, correct?
Yes, yes. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That thing takes forever to grow. So just,
Yeah.
oh God.
Good information. I was actually, like I told you, binging out on some videos today. So yeah, good information. So awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share if you're watching on YouTube, and the same with the podcast. And we will talk to you soon.